Have you ever stared at a name on a screen until it burned itself onto the back of your eyes? For me, that name was Marcus Thorne. It was 2:17 a.m. in our quiet Chicago brownstone. The only light coming from my wife Sarah's phone, which she'd carelessly left on her nightstand. Her screen glowed with a single, sickeningly sweet text message. Can't stop thinking about last night. You're intoxicating. Marcus. The same Marcus Thorne, the ambitious prosecutor who had stood in a courtroom 6 months ago and painted my younger brother Kevin as a menace to society, securing a 5-year sentence on a trumped-up charge. The air in my lungs turned to ice. This wasn't just an affair. This was a betrayal so profound, so twisted, it felt like a declaration of war. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. The first few days were a walking nightmare. I'd watch Sarah across the dinner table, her laughter echoing in our dining room, and all I could see was her with him. The humiliation was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest until I could barely breathe. She started mentioning his name casually. A poisoned dart slipped into conversation. Marcus was telling me about this new exhibit at the Art Institute, she'd say, her eyes distant. Her phone, once an afterthought, was now her constant companion, always angled away from me. Receipts from lavish dinners I wasn't invited to appeared in her purse restaurants near the courthouse, like Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse on Rush Street. She became a stranger in my own home, her affection replaced by a cold, dismissive cruelty. When I'd ask where she'd been, her voice would harden. Working, obviously. Not all of us have the luxury of clocking out at 5. It was a calculated dig at my architecture firm, a place I'd built from the ground up, while she was a consultant with a schedule as fluid as her morals. They felt untouchable. I saw them once from across the street. They were leaving a hotel, the Langham laughing, put his hand on the small of her back, a gesture of ownership that sent a shockwave of pure rage through me. They looked so smug, so utterly convinced of their own superiority. That night I broke. I drove out to Montrose Harbor and just sat in my car, the city lights blurring through my tears. The grief was overwhelming, a tidal wave of loss for the woman I thought I'd married, for the brother I couldn't protect. But as the sun began to rise over Lake Michigan, something inside me shifted. The grief didn't disappear, but it crystallized. It turned into something hard, sharp, and cold. It turned into a plan. My first step was information. I wasn't a spy, but I was a meticulous architect. I knew how to build things, and I knew how to deconstruct them. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop who specialized in marital infidelity. He was worth every penny. Within 2 weeks, I had a folder thick with photographs. Sarah and Marcus entering hotels, kissing in his car in a dimly lit parking garage off Lower Wacker Drive, holding hands at a secluded table at a restaurant in Lincoln Park. I installed a keylogger on her laptop and audio recorders in our home. The recordings were the hardest part, hearing her whisper his name, hearing them mock me. It was like swallowing glass. But I listened to every second, cataloging dates, times, and locations. I learned that Thorne had a gambling problem, a secret he guarded more closely than his career. I also learned, through a discreet inquiry with a legal contact, that he was being considered for a federal judgeship. His entire life was built on a carefully constructed image of integrity, an image I was going to shatter. The trap was set in 3 parts: legal, professional, and social. For the legal trap, I used their own arrogance against them. I knew they used our shared condo for their trysts when I was on business trips she had so conveniently encouraged. I filed for divorce, but the petition included a motion to subpoena security footage from our building and financial records from Thorne, citing alienation of affection and the misuse of marital assets to facilitate the affair. My lawyer, a shark I'd hired specifically for this purpose, timed the filing to coincide with the final review phase for Thorne's judicial appointment. Next, the professional trap. I compiled an anonymous, meticulously documented dossier. It included the photos, transcripts of their conversations, and most importantly, betting slips from Thorne's online gambling accounts that I'd had my pie dig up. I sent it to the head of the Judicial Review Committee and to the state S Attorney's office. I didn't make accusations. I just presented the evidence of conduct unbecoming of an officer of the court. The final piece was the social exposure. Sarah's family was old money, obsessed with appearances. Her father was a prominent surgeon who chaired the board of a major city charity. Their annual gala, a massive event at the Navy Pier Ballroom, was in 2 weeks. I made sure to RSVP for 2, feigning reconciliation. Sarah was ecstatic, believing she had me wrapped around her finger. She bought a new dress, a shimmering silver gown, eager to play the part of the forgiving wife. The night of the gala was surreal. Sarah was on my arm, radiant and oblivious. As her father took the stage to give his keynote address, I slipped away. I had arranged for a technical difficulty. The massive screens on either side of the stage meant to display a slideshow of the charity's work flickered. And then they came to life. It started with a photo, Sarah and Thorne, locked in an embrace outside the Langham. A collective gasp went through the ballroom. Then another photo, this one of them kissing in his car. A low murmur rippled through the crowd of Chicago's elite. I saw Sarah's face drain of all color. Her father stopped mid-sentence, his mouth hanging open. The final image was a screenshot of the text message that had started it all, projected 20 feet high for everyone to see. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Thorne's judicial nomination was instantly withdrawn, and he was suspended pending an internal investigation that I knew would lead to his disbarment. Sarah was a pariah. Her father, humiliated beyond words, refused to even speak to her. She was publicly disgraced, her name synonymous with scandal. In the divorce, the evidence was so overwhelming that the judge awarded me the house, the majority of our assets, and even made her liable for my legal fees. She was left with nothing but the designer clothes she stood in. Saw her one last time months later. She was working as a hostess at a mid-range restaurant in the suburbs. The arrogant light in her eyes was gone, replaced by a hollow, haunted look. She saw me, and for a moment her face contorted with a flicker of the old rage, but it died just as quickly, leaving only a vast, empty shame. I didn't say a word, just turned and walked away. The revenge wasn't loud or explosive. It was a quiet, systematic dismantling of a life, brick by brick. My brother's appeal, funded by my known unencumbered finances and handled by a new, competent legal team, is showing promise. The case Thorne built against him is being revealed as the shoddy, career-driven prosecution it always was. My brownstone is quiet now, the silence a heavy blanket. Sometimes I still wake up at 2:17 a.m., but the screen is dark. The coldest vengeance is living the life they tried to take from you. The end.